Hey guys, it's Megan Works where we last left off. Let's see, checking. So, where we last left off, Deku sort of just destroyed All for One's face. Like he finished. Didn't kill him, or from what he can tell. From what he thought, he put a lot of force into that punch. So as he was about to throw another one, Bakugo and the others told him to stop before he literally killed a man. Despite how evil he is, it's still frowned upon. As Yujiro is just like, letting off a quick little smirk, you could say, as he says that, be easier just to kill him, but, they're weak. Don't yawn just yet. But anyways, as they get All for One escorted away, as Deku and Bakugo are like commended for their efforts and such, and specifically Deku for saying that, for how he resisted All for One's like little thing, as All Might's surprised by that because he never thought any other quirk in the world could ever fight, you could say, All for One on equal footing, but the Hanma quirk did just fine. As Deku says, it was really nothing. Say, you guys tired? I'm tired. I'm gonna go hit the hay. Or bed, whichever saying you prefer. So he wanders off to go find a place to lay his head down. So then we eventually roll around the dorms. As Inko pretty much just gives them full permission to for him to go. As Deku's packing up his stuff, and he gets everything packed up and moves to UA. As Deku and them, for Suyu in that scenario, the class found out about Suyu. Well, everyone found out about Deku and Bakugo's sort of being brought along to go fight All for One and such. So, Suyu tried to convince them otherwise, like everyone else did say. The hero, guys may be strong, but seriously. As they try to convince them, but they just can't. So, as Suyu doesn't actually feel that guilty thing at all, really. Since no one was abducted, she doesn't have that whole scenario happen. So, yeah, they just go on with life. But as Bakugo and Deku are talking one of these days, as they're joined by some of the others who didn't really think they should go out and fight All for One, some of them tell them why and try to convince them. So does Suyu, even saying that they're all very good friends and she didn't want to see anything happen to them. As Bakugo sort of apologizes, but Deku actually says he wouldn't. That they needed him along for the ride, and that he just did what he thought was right. As this kind of sort of hurt Suyu's heart, you could say, they just hear a very good clapping and such. As Deku's oh no. As it's as Ida's sorry sir, but who are you? He's hey, I'm Kay. I came here not to talk with you, glasses. As everyone takes note of how giant this man is. And then Deku's just shit. We're yawning. As he's hey, Dad. As everyone's Dad. As they take a look at Yujiro, then look at Deku, then look at Yujiro again. But as everyone can see the resemblance, he's you shouldn't be like that. Towards the lady, he's sorry Dad, but I think it's better to be true to oneself. Otherwise, what does that say about the character of the man? As Yujiro just lets out a little bit of a laugh, yeah, I guess you're right. Come with me. As Deku follows without hesitation, as everyone else Midoriya, he can't just leave. As he says, It's either I leave now or he may do something. I prefer it only happen to me if it comes down to it. He wanders off with Yujiro, as they go to like that place where Deku and Bakugo fought. As Yujiro says, this will be a good place as any. As Deku says, as he starts taking off his shirt and such, as Yujiro's like, "What are you doing?" Deku's like, "Came here to fight, didn't we?" As he's like, "Oh, you know me so well. You know I really want to fight you, but if I wanted to fight, I would have attacked you right there and then." Like, really? I highly doubt that. It's like, oh. As he's looking at Deku with a question mark, he's like, "You know they would have interfered. Tried, at least. Your main praise me." So, as he, like, takes off his shirt, as he, like, finishes taking it off, "We gonna do this or not?" As Deku takes a very wide stance, similar to Yujiro's. As Yujiro just says, copying my style, he's like, "I found it's most effective for me, and for you. Why not give it a whirl?" Yujiro, sensing that Deku is full-blown serious, lets off a nice little smile as he does the exact same stance. Unleashing the full might that he has, as knowing he can't take Deku jokingly. He takes Deku 100% seriously. As he raises up his arms in the stance, he says, "Come on." As Deku is like, throwing a quick left-right, somewhat of a left smash, you could say. Or right smash, as it connects. As Yujiro actually slides backward, sort of being lifted off his feet. As he sort of stops himself, he's like, as his nose is bleeding, he's like, "Long time." As he, in a flash, Deku puts up his guard as he's just barely able to keep up with Yujiro. As Yujiro unleashes his unyielding fury of blows, as it's just one after another pounding into Deku. As Deku's quickly put against the wall, as Yujiro just starts pounding away at him. Deku's like, "Stay together, Deku. You can push him back a bit more. A bit more is all you need." Gritting his teeth as he sort of waits for a moment, as Yujiro throws two fists at once at one point. Deku quickly wraps his arms around them as he then pulls him in close and headbutts him right in his face. Yujiro, feeling this, sort of has his head go back, then immediately comes back with his own headbutt. As Deku lets go, as then Yujiro quickly kicks him in his knee. Deku with this like sudden pain in his knee as he feels it almost giving, as then he spins around and roundhouse kicks him as Yujiro goes through several more walls to the right. Deku's like, as he resets his knee, like putting it completely back into place. It's like, alright. Moving forward, he grabs something that was in the wall he was just thrown through. Grabbing it as he smashes, sort of slams it into Yujiro's face as it breaks, as it's like brick or concrete. As Yujiro feels this, he sort of goes back, his head goes back more. Deku then comes in with a chop to the throat. Yujiro going like, "Ugh!" And he actually does feel the chop. Yujiro then takes what you would consider two fingers, as then he hits Deku right in a pressure point, as Deku's like, "Shoot!" Grabbing where he was just hit, Deku's like, "Dang it. That hurts," as he feels like, "I think I'm losing a bit of feeling right there." Breathing in deep, as he concentrates, takes another stance. He's like, "Oh, different." Alright, as he moves forward, as he quickly goes to throw a nice little uppercut at Deku, Deku moves quickly. Well, not moves quickly, but he actually just makes his body very except for being tense, he makes it so that way he sort of moves with the punches. As Yujiro goes to punch, Deku moves with it, as then Deku quickly sort of takes his thumb and fingers as he rams it right up into Yujiro's armpits. As Deku then grabs fully, as he moves behind Yujiro almost like a snake, as then he sort of pins Yujiro. Yujiro trying to lift himself into the air as Deku's like sort of has at this point like discarded his shoes as he digs his feet into the ground, sort of trying to force Yujiro to stay down. He's like, come on. Ugh. Yujiro taking his other arm as he sort of jumps up with Deku as Deku has him pinned. Deku then starts bending backwards with Yujiro having done this. As Deku's up in the air, Yujiro takes that time with Deku in the air to take his left arm, well, hang on, yeah, left or right, whichever one he isn't pinned, sort of using his like flexibility as he grabs Deku by the face. As he then takes his two fingers and pressure points right on Deku's jugular. Deku having no option aside to let go. He quickly punches Yujiro again. Yujiro goes through another wall. Deku moving forward goes to punch Yujiro, but oh, sorry about that. But to Deku's dismay, Yujiro quickly moves forward as he then kicks upward, sending Deku into the air like over 100 meters. Not even 100, like maybe close to 200. He's like, oh, shaking his head. He's like, all right. He looks upward as then he punches, coming slamming down as Yujiro jumps up to meet him as they collide. As the two of them are sort of falling down with style, they crash through another building as they fall down to several levels. Deku grabbing Yujiro by the leg as he's was able to recover quicker, throwing him as Yujiro hits another wall. As he stands perfectly straight up, he's like, more powerful you are, Deku. But as he does a movement Deku has never seen before, Deku's like, what is he? As he moves forward, as then he smacks Deku on the back as a part of Deku's skin is missing. Deku lets out a very large yell, like that sound of thunder. It's like, yeah, I never had the time to teach you any of my tricks like I did with Baki. So, he's like, want to try again? As Deku's like, as he saw for a split second how Yujiro did it. As Deku's like, As he moves forward to try to convince Yujiro he's going in for close quarters, but as Deku loosens up his left arm, he sort of makes it all wavy. He smacks Yujiro right on the left side of the ribs. Yujiro's like, as he lets out a large yell, as the move that Deku and Yujiro just did is meant to hurt everybody, and it does hurt everybody. Even Yujiro, the strongest creature on Earth, was slapped by Baki with it, and Yujiro had to focus every bit of his strain his entire body to keep it so he never yelled. But not knowing how to counteract it at this point, lets out the loudest yell anyone has ever heard him do. So what Deku does is everyone even in UA hears this loud shout. Yujiro's like, ha ha ha, well done. As he then kicks forward, going for a backhand. Deku barely dodges, as he went to dodge ahead of time, as he predicted what Yujiro would do. He then kicks forward, kicking Yujiro in the junk. As Yujiro's taking that moment, Yujiro takes his fingers and sort of puts them like using the knuckles and hits Deku's eyes. As Deku goes to grab his face, he's like, "My eyes, you!" As then Yujiro takes his shirt, as then he wraps it around Deku's head. He then throws Deku into like some metal. He then grabs some rebar or something, as then he hits Deku in the face with it. As when he goes to do it again, Deku powers up his jaws as he bites straight through this metal. Yujiro's like, letting like off somewhat of a nice smile, as it was pretty thin rebar and such, but still. Yujiro says, Baki, this is quite enjoyable, but I think it's about time we end this. He focuses as he rushes at Deku coming at him as well, not being able to push past that limit breaker, as Yujiro quickly but suddenly takes his takes his fist and hits Deku right in the jaws, as Deku feels it as his brain hits the back of his skull, as he's like, oh, it's been a while since I felt this. I'm going out, aren't I? As he falls unconscious, Yujiro says, this was nice, Deku. We'll have a nice little bout again sometime. As he leaves, being somewhat satisfied of being able to play around with his son, you could say. As Deku is like just laying there completely knocked out, as Aizawa and the rest of the heroes of the UA, even All Might shows up, actually not buffing up at the moment, but what they find is that Deku's laying in the middle of the ground with a bloodied face, bloody body, and that several buildings have been destroyed. As everyone's like, even Bakugo showed up, she's like, Deku! She rushes over and checks him out, as he's just knocked out. Recovery Girl's like, out of the way. As she's looking over him, he's like, yeah, this is bad. Quickly, help me get him up. As they lift him up, with like the support of Power Loader, Aizawa, and everyone, he's put into the hospital, as she's like, yeah, this was pretty bad. Whoever came and see the fight with Deku sure knew how to rough someone out. It's like, who was it? It was Deku's dad. As the teachers in UA are like, Deku's dad, he's like, yeah. As All Might's like, oh god, he was here? Again? Like, what do you mean again? As what Aizawa says, came to watch Deku during the sports festival. Ran into him a little bit. I believe I had him run into All Might. But, anyways. As All Might recounts the tale, he's like, I didn't think he'd come after Deku, though. As Deku, like, after hearing his name, he, like, goes, like, as he sits up, it's like, Deku, what the hell? He's like, I lost again, didn't I? As he goes to stand up, he's like, oof, as he falls on, like, some of the other beds. Like, Deku, lay down, your brain's a bit shook up. He's like, I gotta get to training. Ugh. He sort of falls down, like, on his hands and knees in front of everybody. Gotta beat him. Can't disappoint. As he falls unconscious. The rest of the heroes are questioning, like, okay. Alright, grab his legs, grab his arms, we'll put him back on this giant bed. All Might buffs up for a little bit as he picks him up and puts him on there. As he quickly has to buff down. He's like, ugh. Cover Girl's like, I'll keep him in here for a little few days. See how he does. But, aside from that, that's about it. As for the rest of you, I suggest the rest of you go get some sleep. From all I can tell, he's fine, just overnight stay to be sure. As when Bakugo returns, everyone's like, whoa, where's Midoriya? As everyone's like, Deku got into a fight. As like, a fight with who? As Ida and Alden were like dead quiet as they were gone. Bakugo, though, when they return, she starts talking about it as she says, his dad. was one of the first times I've ever seen him. And I'll tell you this, he took Deku down. As she's like looking forward, she's like, didn't think anyone else could do that. No one could, I thought. So I guess we see what Deku means is that he wishes to defeat his father. It's like, but I didn't hear any mountains exploding or anything. It's like, I don't know. I know this though. I am going to bed, gonna sleep tight, and I will not let the bed bugs bite. As she goes to her room. As a few weeks later, after like everyone still like checks out their like each of their dorms to like get. As Deku came back with like a broken neck, well, with like a cast on, it's like, it's just a precaution. My neck really isn't broken, but Recovery Girl just wanted to be safe. So yeah. As Deku like walks himself, they're like all getting checked out, and when they check out each other's rooms, spit. Bakugo's has like pictures of her and Deku up in quite a few places, and Deku's room has like just one giant picture of like him and her at like the beach or something. As they have computers and standardized stuff, when the rest of them are looking at Deku's stuff, they're like, huh, whoa. He has a giant room. As they're looking around, it's nothing really too important. As in the corner, actually, in like a very, in like a airtight, like an airtight little case or whatever you would say. And they're like, what the? As they're looking at it, it's the great tux that Deku wore when they went at Eye Island. As the ones who are there, like Momo, Jiro, and such, they're like, oh yeah, I remember this. You wore this when we were at Eye Island. He's like, yeah, I got torn up quite a bit though. Had to get a replacement, if you remember. Yeah, that cost quite a lot. It's like, how much did it cost? She's like, I'm not gonna say anything, because, you know, I don't want you guys trying to, like, see if you guys could use me for money or something. As then they also see Bakugo has, like, the exact another dress matching its color. As it's like, oh, so you two match? He's like, well, yeah. Gone several dates before. As they leave off from the situation. As when we go forward, Deku and them still do that like whole hero exam. Well, except Deku and Bakugo. They left her their own devices, you could say. As they've seen how well they work and such, the only thing, they just felt it wouldn't actually be fair, quote unquote, to the other students to try and have them go against Bakugo and Deku. So they kept them back a bit, you could say. As they were like given pretty much, they were just given their own separate test, you could say, at UA. They had the paid actors and everything, but they had more or less general students from like general studies and such. Shinzo and them, well, Shinzo actually did volunteer, like to pretend to be one of the civilians. Sorry. And, you know, he plays up the part, as Deku and Bakugo just really had to focus on saving villains, since there wasn't much that they couldn't do. As they did pretty well, since they aren't just very strong, but then two of them are actually pretty smart when it comes to situations, so they passed with ease. As Deku and Bakugo, like, get their things, like, nice and done, as it was more or less a formality than an actual thing. Deku talked with Shinzo and some of the other students for a bit, as he talked about how he got so strong. He's just more or less genetics. Genetics that, without how many years I would put myself through hell, wouldn't mean doodly squat. So, you know, lucky and unlucky, you could say. As with the at the end of the question, eventually they do get around the topic of, like, you know, well, one guy does show up with the cameras and such, but nothing really happens. He just goes on, like, taking pictures and such. since like to get similar thing of, oh, I just want everyone to think he's okay, or not okay, but like the next generation of students. As we get to like the whole UA internship, not UA internships, but the big three. As Mirio was eager to meet Deku and Bakugo, but same thing that like Nejire, all three of them were eager to meet Deku. So as they do meet up with them, there's no like suspension or anything. So Deku and Bakugo like listen to them, the big three, about what they say with school and how they want to fight them. Deku sits this one out, and so does Bakugo. They're like clapping their hands. You can do it. As Bakugo does pass the, since she isn't there, she does pass. And like as for other things, like everyone else was still and Deku and Bakugo was still the great inspiration to everyone. Like, don't know why I'm yawning. I'm not tired. But when it came to that situation, Deku and Bakugo were still that great inspiration with their like courage and tenacity and such. And when it came to fighting the big three, they just sat out because they're like, "You guys got this!" As they're like clapping their hands, like, "Good luck." As they were sitting there eagerly waiting, Deku and Bakugo are like, "Alright, how much you want to bet they're gonna lose?" She's like, "You don't have faith in them?" It's like, well, I wouldn't say that. She's like, "Alright, I bet you 50. He's like, "Deal." As the $50 equivalent to yen, which I believe $50. Not entirely sure. But, I think it's like 100 yen is equal to $1. I think it's like a 5,000 yen or so is how much $50 is. Yeah, well, US money. I'm just using US terms, sorry. Like $50 in yen, I guess. But, as they see the class gets pretty much dismantled as they did beforehand, as Nejire and Sun Eater are like, "Why aren't you trying to fight Mirio?" As Nejire is like, yeah, why aren't you? Deku says, "What's the point? Even if I didn't use my quirk, he's I wouldn't say easy, but pretty simple if you could fight him in action." Bakugo says, "Yeah, if I really wanted to, I could just eviscerate the ground below us. It's not really much of a challenge, As Nejiro's like, well, you wouldn't know if you didn't fight him, now would you? It's like, no, I guess I wouldn't, but still. As Nejire keeps on bugging him, as Deku's like, "You know what?" Oh, and he's like, "So what were we betting on?" We were betting on who would go down last in the class. He's like, right. See, you bet 50, I bet 50, and I believe I won, didn't I? And she's like, yeah, take it. He's like, As Deku's like, alright, as he like cracks his neck. No mean to be rude, but small fry off the board. Pretty tired, and I want to go hit the hay in a little bit. As it's like an excuse for everything he does, is that he's usually tired or something. As he says, "So, alright," as he doesn't activate his quirk, he just moves in close as he throws a punch, as he's fast. As Mirio is just like, as it phases through, Deku then takes his hand and pretty much karate chops downward motion. As he sort of hits Mirio, you could say. As Deku doesn't get stuck inside of Mirio, like with his hand doesn't. As he hits Mirio downward, Mirio was making himself intangible. Deku's like, alright. As he moved forward, pretty much moved his foot forward, as he stomped on Mirio's toes. As Mirio's like, "Ow, dang it." as then Deku like goes and sort of goes to like do like a little smack, you could say, as he doesn't hit Muriel right away until he gets to his fist, as then he grabs it and throws him, as Muriel has to come out like undone, you could say, like with the whole permeation trap thing. As Deku, for Deku, he's pretty easy to figure out, relatively simple. As now we like sort of skip over to Eri and them, that little section, as Deku tries to figure out who to go with, as eventually Overhaul and such, but they go to look for what's the word? Work studies, I think. Yeah. Work study agency things. Yeah, that's where I'm going to be ending this one off at. This one was decently long. But anyways, I hope you all have enjoyed this. Hope you all continue to enjoy this. Hope you all have a nice day, nice night, nice life.